You know how you have a big bowl and you don't really want to waste the inside of the bowl because the wood is so pretty? Well, that's the case here. So what you just saw me do was taking my tool rest off, and now I'm setting up the McNaughton center saver. And what this will do is allow me to dig out the center of the bowl, saving it, so that I can make a second smaller bowl out of the same blank. Now what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to make sure that it gets to the right height. It needs to cut right on center. The whole rig is contained just in the tool rest. And I have 5 or 6 different blades. This particular blade I selected because I thought that it would give me a reasonable center out of the bowl without going through the bottom. The key to the McNaughton center saver is that the sort of that U-shaped metal going over the top actually takes all the pressure of the wood pushing down on the cutting edge of the tool. So you don't have to have a gigantic handle. As a matter of fact, I operate it in this video without the handle altogether. Those pins up at the front keep it from twisting as it's going through the wood. And I find that the more I use the McNaughton center saver, the more I like it. So let's see if we can get the bowl spinning here in a second and get the cutting. So one of the things you got to do is make sure that you lift up on the bowl center saver so that the pressure is being handled by the, like I said, the catch over the top, the hasp over the top. And I'm just pushing in to kind of get a start for where I want the bowl to start. And I realized I needed to slow it down just a little bit here. And you can see my absent-mindedness. I have on a pair of safety glasses with a pair on my head. So very safety conscious, I suppose, other than I'm not using the handle. I find that you can see me bouncing it up and down a little bit. The reason why I'm pushing it up and down a little bit is I feel like it cuts a little bit. I can get it to cut when it's not cutting. It might be that I'm not completely on center. I found that this coring didn't go as easy as some of them have gone. But I'm going to get a good start on this, and then I'm going to kind of line up the tool here in a little bit and maybe go just a little shallower. I think if I had followed this line, I would have gone through the bottom of the bowl. When you're initially cutting into the side of a bowl with a center saver like this, you're cutting side grain a lot. And because you're cutting side grain, you get shavings, which is good, except for that shavings have a tendency to go into the slot that you're cutting and clog it up. And you'll also notice that every now and then I almost stop my lathe. I have a 3 horsepower lathe. It's a robust lathe. I find that if you're not using this tool correctly, you can stop your lathe pretty quickly. I sped it up a little bit, and like I said, I'm sort of pulsating it a little bit up and down, but keeping in mind that I don't want to get my fingers in between it and that hasp, because I don't want to catch my fingers. And I'm working it slowly into the wood, all the time sort of pressing the back part to the outside so that it will curve in towards the center of the bowl. Periodically, maybe not as often as I used to have to, but periodically you got to pull the tool out and unclog it, the slot, because you're building up a lot of shavings. The good news is as you get more and more towards the center of the bowl, you have a tendency, your percentage of in grain to side grain is a little greater, and so you have a tendency to be pulling out sawdust instead of shavings at that point, and you don't have to work quite so hard at clearing the notch or clearing the channel. The faster I get with the McNaughton center saver, or the easier, the better I get at it, I guess the faster I get. And although I think I could probably core out the bowl or hollow it out pretty quickly, I'm not sure I could hollow out this much that fast, although I probably could. But the benefit is, of course, I've got a nice rounded blank here in a little bit that I'll be able to take out, and I can use to make another bowl by just rounding it back on the screw chuck in the, in that hole that you see in the center. I find that the elm that this is was really wet, and it didn't really cut as easily or core as easily as say a soft maple. Also smells really bad. Not my favorite smelling wood in the world, but it's beautiful with the difference between the sapwood and the heartwood. Not sure where I was at this moment, but obviously I'd stepped away for a little bit, and I had repositioned so that I could aim just a little bit shallower than where I was going. The other thing that I'm doing here is since I'm going back in, I'm kind of widening the channel just a hair, and the benefit of that is that the shavings and dust will clear more easily because they can pass by your tool more easily. At some point, as you're going around the back side, I actually feel like that's when I want the handle attached more than any other time during the operation, because at some point you can actually start to feel the bowl blank pull your tool into the blank, right? So it's like it almost wants to pull it in and go faster than it should, and of course that would stall out the lathe. And I have my lathe is not direct drive; it's got a belt, so all it does is slip the belt, but it's still not a whole lot of fun to have that happen. Anyway, I'm getting close to that point, and you'll notice instead of shavings coming out, what you see on the top of that pile is more like sawdust. Anyway, we're coming around, we're getting pretty close to finishing this up. And feels like it's getting close to the center right about now. I can sort of hear the sound change. I turned the sound off because there was a TV on in the background as I was recording this. I didn't think about that, but I can hear the sound change. It's time to turn off the lathe and see how close I am, and you can see that it moves a little bit, and boom, it'll break right out of there. That's how you save a center.